Once upon a time, in a vast and prosperous kingdom, there lived a wise and loyal minister who served the king with great dedication. This minister was renowned for his intelligence and quick thinking. No matter how complicated the problem, he always had a solution. His wisdom was so trusted that the king never made an important decision without first consulting him. However, not everyone in the royal court admired the minister. In fact, many other nobles and officials envied his closeness to the king. They would whisper behind his back, mock his decisions in private, and wait eagerly for any opportunity to bring him down. One morning, while strolling in the royal garden with his minister, the king chuckled and said, "You are the wisest man in my entire court. But your son, he seems to lack even the simplest sense. Every morning I ask him the same question. Which is more valuable, gold or silver? And each time without fail he chooses silver. How can someone so foolish be your son?" The minister, though respected and composed, felt a pang of embarrassment. He bowed respectfully and replied, "Your Majesty, I wasn't aware of this. I will speak to my son about it." That evening, the minister returned home with a troubled mind. He called his son into his study and asked gently, "My son, the king tells me you always say silver is more valuable than gold. Surely you know that gold is more precious. Why do you give the wrong answer every day?" The boy, who was around 10 years old, looked up at his father with calm eyes and said, "Father, I know gold is more valuable. But every morning, when the king asks me which one is more precious, he places a gold coin and a silver coin in front of me. I always point to the silver one, and he smiles and gives it to me. If I ever choose the gold, he may think the game is over. He might stop giving me anything." The minister was stunned. "So you've been collecting the silver coins?" The boy nodded and led his father to a wooden box tucked under his bed. When the minister opened it, he found it filled with shining silver coins, neatly stacked and counted. The boy had been receiving one silver coin every morning for months, perhaps even longer. The minister was speechless for a moment, then burst out laughing. He gently placed a hand on his son's head and said, "You've done well. You chose wisely, even when others thought you were a fool." The next day, the minister returned to court and bowed before the king. With a respectful smile, he said, "Your Majesty, I spoke with my son. He is not foolish as he appears. In fact, he is practicing something many wise men fail to do: patience and long-term thinking." The king, intrigued, asked, "What do you mean?" So the minister explained the entire story: how his son always chose silver not because he didn't know gold's value, but because he understood the power of consistency. One gold coin might be worth more in a single moment, but steady silver coins over time had filled a box and taught him a lesson in humility and foresight. The king laughed heartily and clapped his hands. "Well, it seems wisdom runs deep in your family. What others thought was foolishness was, in fact, clever thinking." From that day forward, the boy was no longer mocked by the court. In fact, his story became well known across the kingdom. People began calling him the Wise Fool, a title he carried with pride. As the years passed, the boy grew up to be a respected man. He was offered a position in the court and often reminded others that intelligence was not always about showing off one's knowledge, but knowing when to speak and when to act. He used to say, "Sometimes the smartest move is the one that looks the simplest." Moral of the story: people often judge others based on appearances or isolated actions. What may seem like foolishness to the world could be deep wisdom in disguise. The boy in the story knew that patience and consistency often lead to better rewards than rushing after instant gain. Just because someone doesn't follow the crowd doesn't mean they are wrong. Sometimes, those who appear the simplest are the ones who understand life the best. If you know what you are doing is right, stay true to it, even if others don't understand. Time will reveal the truth.